Everyone, welcome. Yeah, Ensign, if you could go to the next slide. All right, we're gonna give everyone a few minutes to join. Now is the time if you need to grab water, a snack, run to the bathroom, whatever you need to do to feel ready to engage in this space. And then if you use the annotate feature, you can change the color and color on the coloring page. So if you are someone that has a hard time sitting still like me, then while we're waiting for people to join, this is a good way to get some of that energy out. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just giving people a couple more minutes to join. If you would like, you can use the annotate feature to color in the coloring page together. Thank you all for being here today. That's a pretty green. Whoever's doing the tree made a really pretty green. Hi, Renuka.
Casey, how do I do the coloring? Where do I go?
You have to click on annotate. So there should be a little pencil in the left hand corner of your Zoom. Yeah.
Okay.
You can
Let me
change the
try my
color.
hand at it.
Yeah. It's harder than it looks, especially like trying to stay in the lines, but it's relaxing though. And I don't like to sit still, so gives me something to do, right? Oh, I love that. You pick for both. See? Beautiful. Great.
I get so
Yeah,
frustrated with this.
context.
I just want to there. So, there's my grass.
There you go. This is beautiful. This is a great picture. I love the canoe. I picked one that was a little bit easier today. Yesterday, the lines were a little tight. It was even more of a conundrum to try to stay in the lines. So.
And someone back there is somebody putting all shade, yellow and green, and oh my goodness.
Yeah, right?
That's not me.
All the purple in the mountains. There we go, Robert. It was beautiful.
That's great. Oh, there you go.
We have some artists today. Who was some artists for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Screenshot our little picture. All right, y'all. Okay, thank you so much for indulging me in our little coloring introduction. We're gonna go ahead and get started for today. Cindy had the right idea with the water just now. Thank you all for joining.
Oh, let's just continue this artwork. I love it.
It's therapy. Therapy.
Right? It really is. It really is. That was great because you could still kind of see the picture. That was lovely. Okay. All right. Again, thank you all for being here today. Thank you so much for being present. And I really appreciate you joining us in this space today and all of the work that you all do. Very excited today to celebrate some of that work. And so as we get started, I'm going to turn it over to Donna Sabus-Burns to welcome everyone.
Hello, everybody. Thanks again for joining us for these wonderful events. We always try to pick a topic or something of interest to share with our lovely grantees, and this is no different. So we're very happy to join because this is promising practices, right? This is what it is, the work that you're doing, and it's always fun to share the successes and the challenges and have those discussions. And this is no different. We have some wonderful speakers, some of your fellow grantees, And I'm just thrilled to have them here. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And thank you all for joining us and giving us your time there as well. So I hope that you enjoy this event, and let's get started.
Thank you so much, Donna. So as we get started, of course, I will go ahead and go through our standard disclaimer, and then we'll get into the fun stuff for the day. So this presentation was produced under U.S. Department of Education contract number GS00F115CA with Synergy Enterprises, Inc. The views expressed herein do not necessarily represent the positions or policies of the U.S. Department of Education. No official endorsement by the U.S. Department of Education of any product, commodity, service, or enterprise mentioned herein is intended or should be inferred. And with that, I'm going to go over our agenda for today briefly so everyone knows what to expect. So we started off with Donna Sabis-Burns welcoming everyone. We are about to move into an opening from one of your fellow grantees, Robert. And then we're going to watch a couple of highlight videos highlighting some of the great programming that's going on out in Montana and Coeur d'Alene. And then we'll get into a panel discussion. I'm going to start off the panel discussion, but I really invite all of you that are joining us today to put what you want to hear about in the chat, to put your questions in the chat, your wonderings in the chat, or to come off of mute and ask questions as well. So feel free to interact, put questions in the chat, raise your hand, react. We really want it to be an interactive discussion between all of you. And then we'll close with a Muckleshoot meditation. All right, so we're going to go ahead and do the opening, and I will hand it over to Robert. Thank you, Robert.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I dami kshikomyo ano kshiko. Kistonon sitapiyo. Askseni beni kitsi buwaksenonists itutama piatsima. Okay. It's a good thing. It's joyous to spend this day together. We as Indigenous people, we know that our languages are critical and sacred. So Nidakat Simwishk. I'll give an invocation. Okay. I wish bait you. I was for me to pigs, not to eat pigs. I yoch token an unhoxishiko. Not waste to do mixi. Ni tita pigs. Machkisei ka ke mas. Machkoni seni utsi tsi buch suwe. O shibet biokimis mixi matapix. Ma napitapix atsistotok any ni tsi tapi unhoxishikoi ni desksenich poa any ni bad tapis nun ki ni tsi tapi no ni tsi tapi ni tsi poach senanis. O shibet biops pumokinan any xach kom igatsa ti any esabuxisat any oktapi ok kamutan ken ok. Oh creator, source of life, bless all these indigenous peoples so that they may try hard and persevere in maintaining the balance of their language. Pity us, for we are very pitiful. We've been rooked by the colonizing force and tricked into speaking their tongue. But as we know, the tongue of our mothers is the tongue of ourselves. Help us so that we may know the good methods and the good approaches in healing each other, helping each other with our languages. Help us so that give us the opportunity so that we may help ask our elders the right questions and give our youth the right instructions. Again, thank you.
Thank you so much, Robert. That was beautiful. We really appreciate you for opening the space today. And thank you again for your time and your willingness to do that for us. As we get started today, we are about to preview the highlight videos of Robert's program and some other programs as well. And so I'm going to turn it over to Olani to provide some context, and then we'll go into viewing.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. I was given the wonderful opportunity to be able to go out to Montana and to Idaho to see some amazing programs. Really what hit me first was the landscape and the environment of where these programs existed. And then you get sort of hit by the amazing people that live there. Whether it's, just the people you see in the hotels or walking around in the community to go grab a bottle of water, just these amazing Native communities. And then to see the teachers and the principals and the program people and the students and their families really is very inspiring. And I think you're going to get to see a few of the programs that are doing some amazing work that we wanted to highlight and to share that are really inspiring and create in me a sense of hope and inspiration of the resiliency of Native people who are creating these innovative and impactful programs. And we're going to start, I believe, with Montana. So I got to first go to Browning and then down to Arley. Between the two is a 5-hour drive. And for me, being an island girl, it was really a sea of land to me, because our land only goes so far and then you hit ocean. And so just see that, and how the environment impacts the Native people and their language and their culture and their tradition was just amazing. And then again, to see the people within those environments continuing to create and to be resilient is just amazing. And I'm hoping that these videos catch and have caught that resiliency and that innovation that are being lived every day within these two communities in Montana. And as far as and if we got a chance to get out to see everybody, I'm sure we would see that across the nation. And so that's all I have to say about Montana. I hope you enjoy the video.
I am the director of the Blackfeet Native American Studies program, which is within the Browning Public Schools, District Number 9. Browning Public Schools is one of the biggest all Native American schools, probably in the nation. I grew up in the 90s, and I would constantly hear our elders talk about the importance of our language, that it makes us who we are. And I was just very touched by the sincerity of their voices when they would say that. You don't hear the language much. So I really had to go off and seek it myself. Receiving the Native American language grant from the Office of Indian Education really enabled our team to get together in ways that we never got together before. We got to bond as friends, and we get to have meaningful professional development along with being able to contract outside entities to help us create film and make our curriculum towards our language more robust. This NAL grant, we actually made a 45-minute long video that's primarily on Blackfoot with puppets and Blackfoot Jeopardy. And that's mainly designed so that if a class has a substitute teacher come in. But we're also supplementing that with other videos as well. We already translated Itsy Bitsy Spider, Old MacDonald, Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, Won't You Be My Neighbor?
And we have to change the words too in order to fit the melody. And we're going to be making more music videos for that. And it's just, again, that's how we introduce the language into the home, is having multimedia, multitudes of worksheets, things for games. As you've seen this during your visit, we really value fun. We're actually developing an online dictionary, thanks to this grant, that will work like a wiki, where you could say you look up a word, how to say bear chief, and Ninoch Gaio will come up, and then you click on Gaio. Our department has also invested into a movable planetarium. The stars are remarkable because they invoke a sense of awe in all of us. And to be able to go into this dome and be able to teach the stars from our perspective, and even just philosophy, it really grounds people.
So the biggest challenge that we faced was there's a number of writing systems out there. Some of our kids were subjected to probably, 7 different ways to write the Blackfeet language. And then also our elders, they have different dialects. Our people have different dialects. And so sometimes people, that's not, you said that wrong, or you need to say it this way. And so people were scared. Our staff was scared to start or even try to learn the language because they didn't want to get in trouble or get laughed at. But since we've really embraced this, it has been an amazing journey.
We have our younger students, like the kindergarten students, that are learning our Blackfoot blessing, our Blackfoot prayer. And when I hear them out in the community saying that at public events, or I'll see it on social media, and I just think, okay, we are saving our language.
What would you say boy in Blackfoot? How would you say girl?
Raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Kayla Dix. I am a teacher here at the Arley School. I teach art in Salish, and I'm Bitterroot Salish. What inspired me to become an educator was the love for my people and my community and my family. When I was growing up, I was fortunate to grow up in the language and the culture what a lot of people here don't have. And when I left my home to further my education, I had values and morals to navigate the world, and I felt like I wanted to give that back to our people and our younger generation, so they really had a grounding to help them. So we have a couple songs, and the kids love that, and they love to drum and they love to sing, and then we go into colors and numbers and just really trying to set a foundation for them to build upon. But then we go into the calendar math, where every month in my culture is named after a significant part of what is happening. So for example, this month was Spokane, which means month of the bitterroot. So during this time of the month, my people are going out and they're gathering bitterroot. And so then I teach the kids about that. What is the cultural significance of the bitterroot to the Salish people? We recognize the significance of having curriculum that is culturally responsive. Cultural relevance is important in increasing educational outcomes. Around 70% of the student body here in Arlie identifies as being Native American. So we recognize that it's important to base curriculum around cultural relevancy. This makes education more relatable for our students, and I feel like it makes them feel seen and valued.
I think cleaning the cemetery was important because it was not only to help the people that have passed, but also the family members of those people. And it was involved with helping the community, and which is important.
What makes the cemetery and what we do at the cemetery so special? I think that leads into a different question of what makes this community so special too. And I think it's that we go through the effort, we have these cultural ties that bind us to this place, and it allows us to gather and to respect not just the people from the past, but the land itself. There's a lot of practices that are just about cleaning and picking up and respecting the people and the land that have passed or that are still here. And that's just what makes this place great, is we're all here. And it's not that we're separated, we're together, and we're making an effort to improve this community. That's what makes it special.
What is my dream when it comes to language? My dream is that everyone be fluent. My dream is that everyone know their songs. My dream is everyone know their ceremonies. I think that when we learn who we are, it's such a loving way to wake up every day and look through the lens of your language and see the power, the spirit, and the animacy of who we are as an individual. So my dream for this program is to expand, is to build, and I see us doing that now.
I know that it's working, and I see it in our students, and our program, our BNAS program is growing. And there's more teachers that want to be in our program, there's more teachers that are wanting to learn, and not even just teachers, there's people in our community that want to be linguists, or they want to learn the language, so they're signing up for classes, or they're learning more about our history and our culture, and they seeing us become elders and passing down that knowledge and that, you know, to these younger generations and people. I want to see that coming, because we'll have a bunch of those just language teachers and knowledge keepers out in this world, and that, I feel like that's because of this program and everything that we're doing as a community, not just as teachers, but as a community. Everything we're trying, as long as we become one, I feel like it's just going to be more powerful.
Excuse me, amazing. So we're gonna go ahead and watch the second video as well. I'm gonna give it back to Alani so she can tell y'all a little bit more about the second video and that community. And then we'll get into questions. And just a reminder that, you know, any questions that you think of, if you could please hold those, throw them in the chat so that we can make sure that you hear more about what you want to hear about from our panelists today. Alani.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. So getting to go to Coeur d'Alene and see the program, a very innovative program around wanting to connect students to their culture and their place, and all of that together in order for them to build self-confidence, not just self-confidence, but also community confidence and community knowledge, so that they can go out into the world and be successful. So it's this very innovative blend of culture, cultural practices, history, and also thinking about a student's post-secondary aspirations and where they want to go in the future, taking along that confidence and using it to move through their life. Again, an amazing experience to see the landscape of these people, and to hear the history was, I mean, to like be at the site. So you get to be at the site, hear the history, and you feel that space, and you imagine in your mind like these historical events happening in this space, which was the best way, I think, to learn history and really have that resonate, and to see the students in those different spaces and to interact with them was really, again, inspiring to hear their thoughts about as descendants of these people, their thoughts about their pride, also some I think you could say frustration and angst about the history of their people, and really hearing them in the end talk about their commitment to making that right and to moving their people forward, which I thought was very inspiring. And so that's a little context of this video.
Thank you, Alani, for that. And so now we'll watch the second video, and then we'll get into our discussion today.
Our premise has been that knowing our history and walking those lands where those events have happened, and we've been doing it, this is our third summer doing it, and what we're hearing the kids, it's raising their critical consciousness, and that's what we want. We've already noted many snippets of what we're hearing kids saying. Okay, I've heard this story, now I've walked these lands, and it's having an enormous impact on them. This project, and thankfully we were funded from the Office of Indian Education. It takes place on the Coeur d'Alene Reservation, and we felt a strong need to design this project based upon our kids learning our history. It's a workforce-based program, but we feel that it's just vital that our kids understand our history, know our history, because we want them to enter into the workforce knowing this and carrying out the tribe's 5 core values in that workplace when they are in the positions that we are in.
So last year we had about 64 students that went through the program. We had 78 apply this time, which was a little alarming in a good way for us. And at least half of those students are returners. So there's the first point, that they want to come back. These kids have never had a job before because they get a stipend, and it's super exciting for them. That's exciting to have a job, but it's also, there seems to be a desire to want to come and learn.
The value of the summer youth program to the Coeur d'Alene youth would probably be facilitating a relationship between professional skills and instilling those 5 core values, and also giving a place for kids to develop deeper knowledge of their culture and history through various activities that help connect them to the land and to each other, as well as community members. As a mentor, I help students participate in the activities while also forming the relationships with each other, as well as me forming a relationship with them. I've known a lot of them since they were very young, so getting to help them step into the next phases of their life while also getting to do something that I've done since I was very young. I've done summer youth since I was 14 years old, so being a senior in college now, getting to help other kids learn through those same experiences is what being a mentor means to me.
This is the Battle of Four Lakes, September 1st, 1858. Following the defeat of Colonel Steptoe, Colonel George Wright was determined to inflict vengeance on the natives. He did this through 2 more battles. The first one, the Battle of Four Lakes, began at dawn on September 1st, 10 miles west of Spokane Falls. The Coeur d'Alene tribal members maintain that only a Spokane and a Yakima lost their lives during this encounter, but contemporary Army accounts place the number of native casualties closer to 60.
Battle of Spokane Plains, September 5th, 1858. In the second battle, as Wright's soldiers began to move toward the Spokane River on September 5th, the Indians set fire to the native grasses and began firing on the troops amid the confusion of the smoke. A strong wind was blowing in our faces, Captain Keyes wrote in his memoir, and the flames were shooting high and constantly extending. The Indians pursued the army in what became known as the Battle of Spokane Plains for 14 miles over hills, ravines, woods, rocks, and bare level ground. This was the second battle the Indians had with Wright's army. When the regulars reached the Spokane River, the Indians retreated, unable to press the troops any further. Despite the shower of bullets and the deadly splintering of the pine stands from which the army drove the Indians, few casualties resulted.
These young people need to know who they are, and they need to know where they're from, and they need to know, yes, this is your homeland, but it's deeper than that. It's the connection to water, the connection to land, the connection to your ancestors is not something that often happens on a day-to-day basis.
Well, before Natalie starts reading, I just want you guys to be aware that this smudge, like I tried to explain it at the other place, but this is for cleansing. It's to release all the negative energy, if there's any sadness or hurt, because this is a very important place that a lot of really devastating and sad things happen against our people. And so Natalie's gonna read that, but I have this smudge, and that's why we have this smudge, is to help cleanse that what happened to our people.
Horse Slaughter Camp, September 10th, 1858. Some Coeur d'Alene warriors, influenced by Father Josette's peace efforts and aware that tribal chief Vincent did not support their involvement in further battles, returned to the mission. Josette sent Coeur d'Alene tribal member Sebastian Zuliatsat to present their peace proposal to Colonel Wright. On September 10th, Zuliatsat arrived at Wright's camp. The peace messenger found that the colonel, in an effort to achieve an emotional victory in the wake of an uncertain military run, had captured and shot approximately 800 of the interior tribe's grays and horses.
I like the summer program because it's more of a way to get interaction between kids when they go, instead of just sitting at home. It's more of an interaction in an educational way in the summer.
Well, what I personally enjoy most about the summer program is going outside, hiking, being able to look at all the plants and identify them, not just pass my gaze over them and not think anything of them. Because a lot of the plants out there are edible, and I feel like in a situation where you're stranded, that could really save someone's life.
The summer program has made me learn about art, our history, how to beat, how to make drums, and a lot more.
I keep coming back to this summer program because it's fun and it's educational. I like to think of it as a fun type of school.
What I enjoy about the summer program is going outside, learning how we used to eat and drink, and how some of the dry land used to be water, and how we used to be able to drink the water without getting sick, and yeah, that's about it.
I believe the increase of student enrollment and interest in the program stems from partially marketing, partially the fact that we've expanded our program. We used to be just a work-based program where we would place students in departments and then they would hopefully learn some sort of skill in that program. We saw some progress with that, but once we decided to move into kind of learning tribal history, it sparked kids' interests. We coupled that with learning a certain skill. So for instance, in art, they learn about like drum making, and last year they made dresses and ribbon shirts, things like that.
So this year, and as last year, we have an Indigenous art track. We have the photography track, which is always super popular. It's like a beginner's introduction to using a proper camera. They do all sorts of mini projects, and then they create a virtual gallery, which I believe you've had a chance to take a look at to showcase their work in collaboration with John Anderson from the University of Idaho.
Sitting here as a veteran of a United States Marine, but that fought for America. But this is my homeland. This is our homeland, and this is why we're here. There's men and women that are serving throughout the world today because the United States government ordered them to do so, but also to carry on, I guess, what America stands for peace, for freedom, for right of everyone to be who they are, to do what they are. And that's what these amazing people here did on this wall. They fought for freedom.
Their voices are now saying, I want to be able to do something about this. And whatever field they enter into is going to help with the health and wellness of our people, land, and our water.
Okay, so those were the videos that we have for you today, highlighting some of the programs. I'm gonna start the discussion. At this point, I'll have our panelists open up by just sharing a little bit about their programs, and then as you all think of things that you would love to know more about, if you could throw those in the chat or raise your hand so you can ask your questions, that'd be amazing. So whoever wants to start off out of the panelists, I'm gonna just ask that each of you shares a little bit about your program and what makes it special.
Hi, I'm Deanne Smith, and I'm with the Arley CRC project, and we're actually a NATRI grant. So we're all about recruiting and retaining Native American educators. Our program is based around 3 strands. The first strand is culture, the second strand is reading, and the third strand is mental health. When Alani and her team came last spring, we had only been awarded the grant for about 6 months, so I was a little like, ooh, I don't, I'm like, oh, I don't really have, much to show off or whatever, but they spent about, 10 hours in Arley, and it was the most wonderful day because we just went around and visited with our staff and our students, and we got to listen to everybody talk about their like passion for the students, passion for teaching. And it was just a wonderful experience. So yeah, I'm just very excited that we are now almost a year into our grant and we have some really good things happening, and I'm just so glad to be part of it.
Amazing. Thank you, Deanne. Robert, I saw you had come off mute if you want to go ahead and share a little bit.
Yeah, okay. I'm the Blackfeet Native American Studies Director here at the Browning Public Schools. We have nearly 2,000 students, 99 or 98% Blackfeet, but 100% people live on, who are part of the community, which is really critical. The programs that we have is we actually have an immersion program, K through 5. And then after that, we integrate pretty oral teaching techniques developed by indigenous peoples. And one of the main goals that I have set my eyes on is to generate and create a library for our Blackfoot language, and primarily inviting literacy into our language, which leads into even a larger discussion, because some people have this adage of well, we were told that we don't need to read and write our language because my grandmother learned the language without reading and writing. But that worked when people were swimming in a sea of Blackfoot language, but now it comes very rarely. It's very critical that as we move forward, we maintain a foundation and give people the proper tools so that they can build their language lodge. And yeah, I really enjoy it. And there's my introduction.
Thank you so much, Robert. And then Cordeline.
Sure. So we were funded through the American Rescue Plan, the American Indian Resilience and Education Grant. And Ilani and her team came out kind of at the third year, the kind of tail end of our program. To give you a little bit more context, we have really based our summer youth program on teaching the Coeur d'Alene students their history, because we find ourselves in northern Idaho in a place where the teaching of anything other than the dominant culture's version of things is not acceptable. So in the schools, the kids don't learn their true history. And so that was something that kind of was behind our planning, was that the students were going to learn about their history. And each year we kind of moved the history timeline forward a little bit. We always include a bit of pre-contact history to kind of ground them back there, and then we move on to the next bit. So we've covered the coming of the railroads. We've covered actually the battle with Colonel Staptoe in detail. We've covered the mining, the mining and the damage that was done. And what Dr. Meyer and I quickly realized is, we're telling these students about the damage that was done and how the tribe are trying to now put that right. But until they understand the bigger picture behind that, the westward expansion, the federal Indian policies, all of that damage that was done and why it was done, then they can begin to understand how the land was damaged and how the restoration is working.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and then after that, I'm going to turn it over to the grantees that are here with us and your questions. So I'll start with, y'all are in areas where you're surrounded by land. And so very curious kind of how you've engaged your communities and made them a part of building your programs, and also like getting them involved in the program.
So last year at the project directors meeting, I watched a presentation on the circles of reflection. That was a toolkit that was developed, and I'm not sure which grant it's under or anything, but you know, I was like, oh yeah, that seems pretty cool and whatnot, you know, and time kind of passed. And then it just kept on like thinking, you know, that would really help guide our work. And so we have just started that process and it's been wonderful. And so we completed our first circle, and this next circle is now where we bring in like all of our stakeholders to discuss those same reflection questions that we discussed in the first circle. So we start with our core circle, then we expand it during our second circle. And then we come back that third circle and we create an action plan based on what we heard from our community, our stakeholders. And I don't know, I'm just so glad that we decided to use this process because it's really focusing our work. It's kind of getting everybody on the same page. It's helping us communicate to even understand what we're doing within our district, let alone just getting everybody's perspective. So that's currently how we're engaging the community.
Ways that I engage our community is social media. Through our public schools, we have a Facebook page, and in our community, Facebook is just everybody's on Facebook. So we're sure to share a majority of the language things we do, primarily media. So we'll do words of the week rather than words of the day, and I use puppets. Puppets are pretty when you come from a small community, sometimes you want to keep your face out of the screen just because, I don't know, maybe you broke someone's pencil back in 3rd grade and they're still holding it against you. And I say that with humor rather than with like any cynicism. And then also like multimedia, again, media is so critical because children, they all have their own iPads nowadays, and if we could get them addicted to our content rather than Cocomelon, then we're doing a good job there. The other thing too is translating just children's songs in the Blackfoot, which also kind of provides a there's culturally specific roadblocks in there though, but we've been able to figure out a way to navigate through it. But the tough thing though is really we have no culture has any cultural ethics on how to save their language. And often the way that we have to save our language runs in antithesis to our old ways. Part of that is myself being in my late 30s, I have to tell older people that this is the way we're going to do it. This is what we're going on. This is what research shows. This is how you learn a second language. Our language is a human language, and we're not like spiritually inclined to learn our language. It's just we're human beings, and our brains need to have access to the language. And part of that is just opening up that conversation and allowing the community to scrutinize it, but also not punching back, but really like holding out your arms for a hug, if anything. It's really critical because that's actually one of the biggest challenges actually though, is just you have to break tradition in order to keep this tradition of language afloat. It's so important for people to accept that. And again, the way that we do that is just with transparency. So all the language lists that we create here at Browning Public Schools, we submit it to board reports, and all of our board reports are open to the public. Of course, not everybody is going to know how to access that. So again, we put it on social media, and we also provide newsletters to the community through this program as well, which was funded by the NAL grant that we use funds to create newsletters. And then we will have community meetings. Not many people show up to those, and that's why I invest more time into social media than meetings, because it's easier to catch someone when they're scrolling rather than bringing them in here for a couple hours. So utilizing technology is critical.
I think for us, one of our priorities was to engage the families from the very beginning, to engage them in the process, to engage them in what the aims and objectives of our program was. And one of the ways we do that is we have equipment for all of the students prior to the summer program. So regardless of which activity track they're in, all the kids get backpacks, they all get water bottles, they all get, so this year we bought them snorkels actually too, because we did some fun snorkeling on one of the rivers. And the families have to come in and they have to sign paperwork and they have to take possession of the equipment with the child. And that's been fundamental in getting them involved in that process. But also we start off our weeks with a Zoom session on the very first Monday of each week. So each week is themed, considering the history period that we're looking at. And we have visiting speakers come and talk to the students to give them context, to give them knowledge. And we had some family members join those Zoom calls this time because they don't know the history either. So, you know, the true history of the Coeur d'Alene people is not something that every Coeur d'Alene knows. And we had some very good feedback from, you know, one or two family members who were really grateful that they could sit down on that and listen to that too. And we do ask for feedback. We ask for suggestions. And one suggestion that we had this time was that all the activity tracks incorporate a stricter time frame for the day, so that families who might have a child in photography or a child in podcasting know what time those activities are finishing, so they can come and pick the children up at the same time. So that's something that we're working on to tighten that up this time as well. Again, like you said, Robert, Facebook seems to be the predominant method of communication in the community. We're not very good at blowing our own trumpet. I think Dr. Mai will agree. We don't celebrate enough, and we need to, but we do communicate with families through that medium as well and through our website.
I would like to also include that one of the great challenges is in a small community, I would make the argument that everybody is an expert on their culture. Because you know, a lot of people will say, "Oh, I don't know our culture," but it's like our culture is a modern expression, and if you could vocalize and articulate and explain who we are as a modern people, then you do know our culture. But again, the issue with that is that a lot of us in the language world, we are experts at language revitalization, and we're constantly being bombarded by community members who hop into a discussion, heard somebody say something, and really like insist that their uninformed idea is golden. And again, I don't, it's sometimes it's tough to criticize your own community without coming off as bitter. And I'm not saying I'm coming off, that's not my intent. My intent is like, as language revitalists, we do really have to build a capacity to listen to real bad ideas at times. And how do we brush that off? You know, we listen to them. Oh, okay. Because one thing that I've realized is as a again, as an expert in language revitalization, I've come to the conclusion that we need a writing system, because number one, we are writing it. Whether people say, "Oh, we don't need that way" or not, we are writing it. And so it is a written language, but with that, we have to take the discussion a little bit more deep, because yes, it's being written, but will it lead to literacy? Because you can you can hold a word. So like, again, for example, the word that we call ourselves is Bikani. And a lot of people will spell it as BEE-GUN-KNEE. And so it's written, but it's just written really poorly. And the average human being really won't be able to understand why that's not a good way to represent your language, because number one, you're using 3 separate English words. Number two, it's not phonetic. Phonetics do not have silent letters. And number and then in addition, writing it like that, using English to represent your language. The English language does not have the sounds that we have as well. So when we talk about our guttural tone and aspirate tone, people are not, they're just ignoring those sounds when they write it. And so when I'm coming along here in my community, this young guy, saying, "Oh, we got to use a writing system. Here's a writing system that works. It was developed by a fluent speaker." I could like talk until I'm blue in the face with the most gentle vocabulary, but there are individuals that will hear me say, your grandma and grandpa are wrong, even though that's not the vocabulary or intent behind my words. And that does face a challenge because the ultimate goal is to save our language. The goal isn't to prop ourselves up on a pedestal. The goal is to put our language on that pedestal. And again, the way that we're navigating through that is you just got to develop the most amount of materials, and then as soon as people see these materials all throughout your community and they see that it works with the youth, then they will follow. And it's been happening too, actually. I've noticed is there have been people who were initially against this writing system that I've been introducing that was developed by a fluent Blackfoot speaker, and they're slowly adapting to it, and it's really interesting to see. I guess really the analogy I would use is I watched a documentary on Animal Planet 10 years ago, and there's this young bear whose mother died at the beginning of summer. So this bear had to learn all these things on its own. And this bear came across these 3 wolves eating on a carcass. And this bear, being bigger than each one of those individuals, muscled his way over there and chased those wolves away and started eating. And the next thing, those wolves were like, wait a minute, there's more of us than them. And they chased that bear away. That bear had all summer to learn. And then at the end of the year, the serendipitously came across those 3 same wolves eating a carcass, but this time its approach was a lot different. It didn't bully its way in there. It would kind of take a few steps and stop, letting those wolves know that it was on its way, and it was transparent with its intentions. And then it just kind of slowly started eating that carcass with them. And those wolves kind of looked at the bear and just shrugged their shoulders and, why not? That was really profound to see. And I guess like that's like the approach is to be transparent with your community, regardless of how much criticism you may or may not receive. Your language is more important than the language. Your work in your language is the most important thing you will do in your life, because it's supposed to. Our goal is to sustain it for generations to come, and that requires getting some people in your community mad at you. But again, you're not doing that to antagonize them. You're doing it to help them. And a lot of times when people are injured, they're gonna, people get mad at those people who are trying to help them heal, the same way as a physical therapist will push somebody who's trying to heal to the max. And it does generate some pain, but it's more important that they face that pain than ignore it. Hope some of that made sense. But anyways, I just wanted to throw it out there as some obstacles that we face in this community, but we persevere.
Thank you, Robert. I want to draw your attention to a couple of things in the chat. For those of you that are listening in, and in the chat, Alani did pose a question to the chat, since some of the panelists mentioned that they use social media, Facebook. She wanted to know if any of the other programs use social media to connect with their communities, and if you do, which platforms you use. So if people could respond to that in the chat, that would be awesome to continue the conversation in there. I saw where Chris said that they engage cultural and language, natural resources, elders, tribal historians in developing the Coeur d'Alene history for their programming. And then I did see we had one question in the chat for the panelists as well. I saw Stacy said, or no, it was Colleen, sorry. Colleen said, Robert, in using technology, are you reaching into this new wave of AI? And I'll go ahead and pose that to everyone as well. I think all of y'all mentioned technology in some way. So what's been your approach with AI, if any?
I was very excited at first to try to utilize AI, and I was starting to plug a dictionary that I'm working into this AI program. But after I read how much resources and water AI takes, I kind of thought I can't destroy the earth to save my language. So it just takes too much resources and water. So I've made the ethical decision to stay away from AI in respect to the language work that I'm doing. Yeah, it's a very tough thing because it there's a lot of water being wasted. One AI image, from what I've read, uses about 5 gallons of water, and I'm like, what is the use of being an indigenous person and saving my ways if I'm destroying the earth to do so? So I made the decision to stay away from AI.
I just posted something in the chat. The only interaction I've had really is using the AI companion in the Zoom platform when we have meetings. It's actually astonishing how it can summarize the meeting and actually put who said what in much better than the old transcript that it used to produce, and get half of the words wrong. So we use it quite regularly when we have a meeting, and instead of me having to take notes, which I don't mind, but AI does it now, and I'm quite happy to hand it over because the 2 versions we've done recently have been as accurate as if we'd taken notes.
We currently do not use it, but I'm interested to learn a little more about how we could, if it's useful and not harmful or whatever. Yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. Robert, I'm gonna have to look into that now. So now I feel like I need to do more research. So I appreciate that push. And then Robert actually brought up too in some of his previous comments, some of the challenges that they face in their community. And so curious from the rest of you, if you could talk about an obstacle that you've encountered and how you overcome that or are working to overcome that.
I think for us, it's mainly due to staffing. We're quite a small team, and the main challenges that we've had is if personnel leave and move on to a different job, and we have to kind of regroup and retool almost to be able to deliver the same quality of programming in the summer. We do push people outside their comfort zones. We had them all going on canoe trips in traditional canoes this year, and I think some were a little hesitant to do that, but pushed themselves to do it. So we do expect a lot from our team, because we deliver high quality learning experiences for these kids, and we expect people to be able to just, roll up your sleeves, put on your boots, get on with it. So that would be a challenge, is people out of their comfort zone and us saying, well, how about you do that this year? And initially there might be pushback, but they usually come around in the end.
What about you, Deanne? I know you mentioned that you, at the time of the video, you were just kind of starting in the program. So any challenges or really great successes since we visited you?
I would just say the whole staffing thing, and it's kind of funny because it's like, even though that's our biggest challenge, it's probably also our biggest success because yeah, we had some change in administration at our school and things like that. However, like our core team is so solid that we can kind of withstand those changes. And I think one thing we have going for us right now is like the the hard work that we did last spring about just like bringing awareness and communicating and the purpose of this grant and our different strands and the, you know, getting the work implemented. Now it is just, people understand it, they're on board, and we're just like digging in and doing the work. And I've been involved with other grant programs where it just felt like, oh, you know, that's a very like departmentalized grant, like, oh, it's only, you know, grades K through second or something like that. But this really feels like a whole district type thing going on. And so it's very promising and I'm excited.
Great, thank you for sharing. Oh, that's amazing. Okay, checking the chat. I don't see anything. Okay, so Robert or Julie or Chris, any successes since filming that you're really proud of?
I think we started to take a look at some of the reflections from the students, and the excitement for us and the success for us is what we've set out to do, which Dr. Meyer said earlier about raising the students' critical consciousness. And we want to develop a connection to place, to the land, the water, and the people. We're beginning to see that in the reflections that the students do. Some of those reflections are written reflections, some of them are verbal reflections. But we're beginning to see that this is impacting them, learning the true history of the Coeur d'Alene people, not through the lens of dominant culture, is beginning to impact them. So they're not just saying, why don't we learn this in school? And that's been from non-tribal community members, part of our program as well. But I see that now, and I feel that. I feel it deeply. I feel the pain. I can't believe what my ancestors had to do. I mean, we took a walk out on Dr. Meyer's Yaya's allotment because we were looking at the Allotment Act 2 this year, and the kids were really touched by that and how far people had to walk, just those simple things about, you know, having to walk to get food. And immersing them in areas of the Aboriginal homeland that they didn't even know was part of the homeland. That was also an interesting point for us, that, you know, we take them to the far boundaries, and I didn't know this was part of our land. Well, yep, it is.
We're also beginning to see an increase in the retention rate of our students, going from elementary school to middle school to high school. And we have several students that are now in post-secondary as well. So we see them moving through the education pipeline that was developed back in 2006.
Thank you. Robert, anything new going on in Browning that you're proud of or looking forward to?
Yeah, we start, you know, as you saw in that video, we have a star lab. We call it our Star Lodge, our eco course, and figuring out how to create full dome videos, animation, so that we can just press play, and I don't need to be present for that, and that means it's be accessible by more people. But there's victories every day in our community. Just every time you hear people speak the language, I'm very blessed in my position, because the students in our community know who I am, and they'll speak Blackfoot to me as much as they could, and it's pretty lovely. And there's other people in other programs that are doing wonderful work as well. So I'm really happy about that. So we have successes every day. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Stacy had a question in the chat. How have you engaged intergenerational learning? Any highlights from engaging intergenerational learning?
Well, I'll answer that. I ignore it. I don't care if someone is 6 or 60. I'm going to treat them the same usually, depending on the context. Because when you're a child of the language, you're a child of the language, no matter what age you are. Well, what we need is trust and buy-in from anybody who engages in learning the language, because there is a when it comes to the youth, particularly students, and introducing again a writing system, they'll just accept it because you're handing them tools and you're telling them to build a house, and they'll just use those tools that you're giving to them, not knowing the generational arguments that we have for reading and writing. For the older crowd, again, a lot of people will, like a lot of baby boomers, want to pontificate and go into a classroom and talk about how they were never allowed to learn the language. And number one, they need to express that emotion, and that's important, and they ought to be allowed to. But number two, it's a language class, and any discussions of any stories in English take us away from that language. So it's really important to hone people in and remind them that, hey, we're not here to talk about that. Let's create a talking circle where we can express these emotions. But when you come to a language class, you have to come there with an intent to speak the language and not speak English. And it's easier to get young people to buy in that. And it's just a generational phenomena. And again, I don't hold that against anybody, that they need to share that grief. But again, I digress. You don't go into a mathematics class and pontificate on how you never learn math. You go in there and you sit down and you learn math. And we need everybody in the community to buy in and accept that when you have a language class, you go there to learn the language. You don't go there to tell your personal stories. And I know that comes off maybe heartless, but as I said, we have to make the language the priority. And so there's some differences between generations.
Absolutely. Just a heads up to everyone. This was being recorded. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording a little bit early just to give some people time if they wanted to share or ask questions off the recording. So I'm gonna give our last 5 to 8 minutes or so to just have that open dialogue without having to worry about that.